established rich coming right back at you. And today we got to talk about Lupe saying that Nas would not rank high if we really talking about true lyricism. And I'm going to say this off the rip. Nas is the greatest rapper of all time in my opinion. So when I hear somebody say Nas doesn't rank high as a lyricist, that's almost blasphemy to me. Now I understand what Lupe is trying to do. He was trying to separate technical writing from songwriting. He was trying to say if you remove the beat, remove the delivery, remove the music, and only look at the words on the page, there are a lot of rappers who can outwrite bigger artists in a technical way. But that argument falls apart to me when you use Nas as an example. Because Nas is not just great because of the beat. Nas is not just great because of the delivery. Nas is great because he can turn language into a movie. He can write a street scene, a life lesson, a character study, and a personal confession all inside one record without making it sound like a writing exercise. That is lyricism. And if your definition of lyricism don't make room for that, then maybe the definition is too small.
I like this comment right here, this super chat from Leo the Lion says, Nas doesn't have great punchlines, so is he not lyrical? What about other literary devices? I remember Lou praising Blue back in the day. He also isn't a punchline heavy MC. How can we reconcile this? Open floor.
So in terms of like, if you compare Nas to, if you remove, like again, for me, remove the beat, remove everything else and just go with the words. If you threw Nas into, and you created the list of just people who rap, which is a big list. There's hundreds of thousands of rappers. And you remove all that, he wouldn't rank high. I wouldn't rank high. In terms of like, if you compare Nas to, if you remove, like again, for me, remove the beat, remove everything else and just go with the words. If you threw Nas into, and you created the list of just people who rap, which is a big list. There's hundreds of thousands of rappers. And you remove all that, he wouldn't rank high. I wouldn't rank high. That doesn't mean we're not lyricists in our space, but when you isolate it to that, just that fundamental part, a lot of people don't rank high.
This is where I think Lupe got too cute with the argument. He's basically saying, if we only judge rap by technical wordplay, Nas would get outranked by a lot of people. But you can make that argument in any field if you open the pool wide enough. That's like saying Steph Curry is not really the greatest three-point shooter because there's somebody in the park, in a prison, or some guy who never made the league can stand in one spot and hit more three-point shots in an empty gym. Come on, dawg. That's not how greatness works. The greatness is not just can you do the skill in isolation. The greatness is, can you do it when the lights are on, when the game matters? That is a big difference. Anybody can say there are unknown rappers somewhere who can rhyme bigger words, stack more internal rhymes, or write more complicated punchlines. But can they make Illmatic? Can they make I Gave You Power? Can they make One Mic? Can they make a record people live with for 30 years? That is where the argument gets ridiculous. Because Lupe is talking about writing rhymes like rapping is just a technical sport. But Nas writes songs that become part of people's lives. There's a difference between a rapper trying to impress other rappers and a rapper writing something the world can feel. And that is the part I think Lupe keeps discounting. Nas is not trying to win a lyrical miracle contest. He already passed that stage. He is writing records for the listener, not just for other MCs standing in a circle trying to see who can catch the most double meanings. That does not make him less lyrical. That makes him more complete. Because the hardest thing to do in rap is not just sound complicated. The hardest thing is to be complex and still clear. Nas can say something simple and make it feel like history. He can describe a block and make you see the corner. That is a pen. That is a writer. That is lyricism.
It doesn't take, I'm saying, because I know beasts, like people who all they do is punchlines, similes, entendres all day, right? And I also know that I'm really high, but I also know there's thousands. Right. And we haven't done a count. We haven't done a survey. We haven't done a proper summary. It was something I wanted to do a couple years ago. We might do it in the future if things like this become more people get interested in that, to really see how many rappers are there in the world. I reached out to Spotify, I reached out to SoundCloud and tried to get a list, even though some of that is like proprietary information and is private, just to get a count of how many rappers there are in the world. And out of that, how many are in this genre, how many do this, how many do that. And you can sit and test skill. It'll take some time. But, you know, it doesn't take away from Nas as a lyricist at all, because he's Nas. Like, that's crazy. But if you start to is when you compare him to just like punches, the guy said it himself, Nas don't have a lot of punches. Right? He don't have a lot of like bars like that.
Lupe ain't say Nas was trash. He didn't say Nas was not great. He was trying to make a distinction between technical bars and overall artistry. But here's my problem. When you separate the words from the music too much, you start judging rap like homework instead of art. Rap was never just about who had the most complicated rhymes. It was about what you could make people feel with those words. A bar that has 10 layers but no soul is not automatically better than a line that cuts straight through you. A complicated rhyme scheme is impressive, but impressive is not the same as important. And that's why Nas is Nas. He don't need to overload every rhyme with punchlines because his gift is much bigger than that. His gift is perspective. His gift is imagery. His gift is making you feel like you walking through the story with him. That is why people still talk about Illmatic like it dropped yesterday. That is why It Was Written still gets debated. This is why Nas can still be in relevant hip-hop conversations 30 years later, because he did not just write bars. He wrote worlds. And that is why I think Lupe's own career actually proves the point. Lupe is an elite technical rapper. I would never take that from him. He can write at a level very few people can match. And maybe the reason Lupe has not had the success he thinks he deserves is because songwriting is different from just being smart on a record. You can be brilliant and still not make people want to press play. You can be more technical than somebody and still not touch people the same way. You can win the writing exercise and still lose the song. That is not an insult. That's just the reality of music. The goal is not just to make other rappers say, "Did you catch that?" The goal is to make people come back to the record when they are driving, exercising, walking, celebrating, or remembering who they are. That is why Nas and Tupac get defended so hard. People do the same thing with Pop. They say Pop was not the greatest lyricist, and maybe he wasn't trying to be. Pop was writing songs that could touch people. He was writing records that still played 25 years after his death because they connected to something real. So what is the actual goal? To be the best lyrical miracle rapper? Or to write music that stands the test of time? Because if the answer is the second one, then Nas ain't low on that list. He's at the top of the mountain.
If you're rating it on that chill, are they both lyricists? Yeah, because again, we kind of defined as a unit. Everybody has pieces of these. Like even to kind of BK's point about feeling, and me and Mickey, we talked about this yesterday. Like feeling, right? Like everything has feeling. You're not going to escape feeling. You're not going to find a feelingless word. Everybody's going to feel. That comes along for the ride. So that's kind of like a given, right? How intentional you are with the vocabulary choice and the word use or whatever to exaggerate certain feelings or compress certain feelings or say things in a certain way to remove the feeling or dampen the feeling or project it into different space. The whole game is negotiating feeling. Language is negotiating feeling in a certain way, right? So you're going to get that like regardless.
I agree that the media can twist things. Headlines can make it look like Lupe just woke up and decided to disrespect Nas. And to be fair, Lupe was speaking like a rap nerd, breaking down different categories. But even with the context, I still think his take is wrong because the category itself is too narrow. If your pure lyricist list has room for hundreds of unknown rappers, but does not have Nas high, then I have to question what you measuring. Are you measuring writing? Or are you measuring verbal gymnastics? Are you measuring lyricism? Or are you measuring how many tricks a person can put inside a bar? Because those two things are not the same. A great lyricist knows when to be dense and when to be direct. A great lyricist knows how to say something people can remember. That is what Nas does. He makes great writing sound natural. And sometimes that gets undervalued because people think if you can understand it on the first listen, it must not be that deep. That is wrong. Clarity is a skill. Storytelling is a skill. Nas has that. And he's had it since he was a teenager. This is why this argument sounds crazy to me. You can't tell me a man who helped redefine what rap writing could sound like does not rank high as a lyricist because he don't have enough punchlines. That is like saying a great author is not a great writer because he doesn't use enough wordplay on every page. Writing is bigger than that. And Nas is a writer, not just a rapper. And that is why some underground rapper who can rhyme 6-syllable words for 5 minutes does not rank higher than Nas. Technique without impact is just exercise. Nas has technique and impact. That is a big difference. The highest pen is the one that can create something that people still care about when the tricks are over. Nas did that. Big did that. Pop did that. Jay did that. Ice Cube did that. The best of the best did not just write raps. They wrote music people carried with them. So I'm going to take y'all out like this. Lupe has the right to his opinion. He has the right to create whatever category he wants to. But if Nas don't rank high in your lyricist category, then your category is missing something important. Because Nas is not low on anybody's lyricism list. Nas is one of the reasons the damn list even exists. You can find somebody more technical, more punchline heavy. You can find somebody who rhymes more complicated words. But you're going to have a hard time finding somebody who used that pen to paint the world the way Nas did. And that is why, to me, this whole argument is backwards. Nas don't have to prove he belongs with lyricists. The lyricists have been trying to prove that they can be in a category with Nas. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Establish Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.